with any sequel to a very popular film, it always has a very hard time to follow up because it has a lot riding on a good success. And this is where and some of them do great, some of them are even more remembered than the first iteration of that film. Some not so much. Some don't get to have that same success. And even when it comes to a remake of all things, we get to see how that would turn out, and that's what we get with It Chapter 2, the sequel to the first It remake from 2017. And it's definitely what I can say is a mixed bag of things, but it is very entertaining. It has some good scares. It has some good comedy in it too. And I guess we just have to start with some of the basics here. Is that we'll start with first, its plot is a continuation from the first movie of It, as it would follow the book, as we see the Losers Club, these kids that fought this monster that took in the form of a clown. But the clown was never dead. It has returned, and now that these kids are not kids anymore, they're full grown adults, and having to come in and contend with their past selves, and also with this monster that is a big part of their past. And one thing I had to say is that the casting was phenomenal. They got people that looked exactly like these kids if they were grown adults. And a lot of them, and these ones, they do superb performances. They did really good performances with all these characters. James McAvoy, who always does a really good performance, does a good job as Bill, and Bill Hader is the jokester Richie, does even a better job than what I was expecting. But a lot of these characters, every character captures each of their respective role. The actors are portraying their characters in a really good way, and even when you have Bill Skarsgård, who is Pennywise the clown, he still does a great job. He gives a superb performance. All of them do. And I think when it comes to the plot, they wanted to show some of them little flashbacks of when they were kids and other forms that it takes on. The special effects in it are amazing. They are really good. You can still tell it's CG. You can still tell that some of it's fake, but it does a really good job in just capturing what this movie would be about. But in some parts of the plot, it doesn't do so good, and it's where it's like, 'cause some characters that they didn't get much to work with, and then they just kind of fixed it on some spots. I can see where that's really a bit of a problem for someone. For me, was trying to watch the film, and then you're going like, well, they didn't really have a plot going, but then now they do. They try to work like with this weird one angle in one part of the movie, and it didn't really fit. It didn't really fit, and they could have went with a lot of other things, because they definitely wanted to focus on some aspects from the book, but then they took some of those and they made them into their own thing, and that really worked well for it. This one, it kind of tries to do the same thing, but it feels like it's too part of my how I'm gonna say this, it was too afraid to really work with those plot elements that it was working with. But one thing I really appreciated was showing more of the lore of what it is, and what this creature is, and what's it here for. You don't really get to learn much of a reason, but it's already known that it's there to basically eat the people and the children, and that's what it wants to do, and it's enjoying it very much. To me, it's like the scares are really, they are a mixed bag, because sometimes fear is a subjective thing. Not everything scares people, but there were some really good effects, like I said before, that really do a good job in adding to the scares. Even the build-up of some of them is really good. So like the one in the trailer did a really good job. They added more to that as to what was supposed to be in there, and it does a really good job in that. And also in some parts of just messing with your perception on some things, when it does to certain scene transitions and to certain parts in the film where it kind of messes with your head in a way that, you know, it's like it keeps you in a way of guessing. But actually, there's one scene in there that's like, it's a personal favorite of mine. They finally did the scene, and it's for Ben, and I was waiting for them. Are they gonna do it? Because I know they did it in the mini series, but they didn't really touch on it. It didn't seem like it was gonna go that way from the first movie, but they did it anyways, and it was still funny. It was still a funny scene in my personal opinion. But yeah, I have to say, it's like just solid performances and really good casting is, you know, it's kind of like the highlight for this movie. But it's more than just that. It's like they definitely worked with a lot of the lore for this movie, and they wanted to show you is like what would be something that you would have to kill for a being that is it. And for some people, they're not gonna like the ending. I kind of liked the ending. I thought the ending worked pretty good. It worked with the material that it wanted to present for itself. But I could see where like some people might not like this film. It's definitely it's not as good as the first film. I can tell you that much. It's not as good as the first film. However, it is a good companion piece. It's a good, it's a good thing that if you watch these two back to back, you'd feel like you get a full story. That way, it's like you would never feel like, well, that first one is, I'll just watch the first one. It's like, but you'll know that it just feels unfinished, where it feels like you took those pieces from the first one and now you have the second one. Those can work together, and you can watch those movies together, and you'd have a full story, much like you would watch the miniseries. If you watch them both, you get a full story. So overall, I personally enjoyed the film. I was enjoying myself. I thought it was a really good movie. I'll give it a solid 3.5 out of 5, because it's definitely got things holding it back, but it still does not take away from enjoyment of the film. You can still enjoy this film. You can enjoy the performances, and still be afraid of balloons, I guess. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.